kind of sectarian mindset that we are seeing these days on the Mimbar. This should be a wake-up call. But today, we have mainstream Shia scholars from the Mimbar, people associated with Islamic education and the World Federation. They're sitting on the Mimbar in our community center in Stanmore. And what are they saying? They are saying that no, this has become among the masail that distinguishes Shi'ism.
That this is originally not a part of the adhan, but when it was put in the part of the adhan with the niyyah of qurba mutlaqa, of qurbatan ila Allah ta'ala, today this is known to be a Shia adhan. It distinguishes us. And amongst the things as well that distinguish us is also for us to wait with respect to the iftar.
So his whole idea is that because this distinguishes us, even if it is the fabrication of the ghulat and the mufawwida and people who are cursed by the imams and repudiated and refuted by the classical Shia scholars like Sheikh Saduq, we should ignore all of that and we should just stick to and uphold and defend whatever has become popular today. So basically, with this kind of logic, even a Christian would never be able to arrive at the truth. No ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah or ashhadu anna aliyan hujjatullah. This is the adhan as taught by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And the way to recognize them is listen to their adhan. If their adhan has ashhadu anna aliyan waliyullah in it, you know that these are the mufawwida. Today, if you try to defend the actual teaching of Ahlulbayt against what is popular in the sect, people will rush to discredit you and to attack you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We begin in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. My respected elders, my dearest youngsters, brothers and sisters in Iman, Assalamu alaikum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is further to the lecture I had delivered about correct Maghrib time and correct iftar time, because Imam Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salatu wasalam establishes an equivalence between the two. He says Maghrib time and iftar time is identical. This is in letter 52 of Nahjul Balagha. Such that if you know what the correct Maghrib time is, you would know what the correct iftar time should be. And what is the correct time to break your fast as per the fiqh of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt from his progeny. So then we discuss the crucial question, which is what is correct Maghrib time according to the fiqh of Ahlul Bayt? Is it the current popular ruling which asks you to wait until until the eastern redness has disappeared? Or is it something else? And we established, in light of numerous authentic narrations that we presented from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam, which assert that the correct Maghrib time that Jibreel brought to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, in the words of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, حين سقط القرص or حين سقط القرص, when the disk of the sun disappears beneath the horizon, when the sun descends below the horizon such that it's no longer visible to the naked eye. The Imams say حل المغرب أو جاء وقت المغرب وحل الإفطار. This is when you know Maghrib time has come and it is halal and permissible to do your iftar now. Later on, the Ghulat emerged and they tried to delay Shia Maghrib time, and they did so by fabricating and inventing narrations and falsely attributing them to the Imams, thereby claiming that the Imams had taught them that they should not hasten to offer Maghrib or to break their fasts as soon as the sun has set, but rather to wait and keep waiting until it is properly dark, dark enough for certain stars in the sky to become visible. So in any case, this was the presentation that we had made, and in light of this, in light of the authentic narrations of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, it emerges that the established sunnah of the Prophet was basically what you see the mainstream majority of Muslims doing. Notice how it is not our claim that breaking the fast at sunset or shortly after sunset is the correct sunnah because that's what the majority of Muslims are doing. No. We believe it's the correct sunnah because the Ahlul Bayt are claiming that this time is the correct sunnah. It's just a coincidence that the mainstream Muslim ummah happens to be on the same page with the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, or with the authentic view that's attributed to them in our sources. So that's just a happy coincidence and a very opportune and favorable and appropriate grounds for us to have more unity in this ummah. That alhamdulillah, the more authentic opinion that's attributed to our Imams and the mainstream practice is one and the same. So if we cannot bring ourselves to have unity with the Ummah in those things where the Ummah is on the same page with the Imams of Ahlulbayt, then all this talk that you hear of being pro-unity and trying to have unity and uniformity and all of this is then basically a sham. So if we're true and sincere in our claim that we truly desire unity within the Ummah and we desire brotherhood, then why have unnecessary differences of opinion, or why promote unnecessary differences of opinion, which are not even supported by the more authentic view of our own Imams, the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhimu salatu wasalam. So this was basically the presentation and the argument that we've made. And it has been brought to our attention that an attempt has been made by one of the shuyukh in Stanmore, in our community center over there, to respond to this presentation. It is clear from a review of this majlis that this sheikh clearly did not bother to watch our 3-hour presentation. It was actually 1.5 hour. The rest of the 1.5 hour was mainly responses to Q&As that we had been receiving from our own group members. But he basically made no attempt whatsoever to engage with the actual content and the arguments and evidence. And he, in fact, even strawmanned our position because he tried to argue that we are claiming that that all Shia should do iftar immediately upon sunset or following sunset because this is what the mainstream ummah is doing. No, we didn't say do this because the mainstream ummah is doing it. The mainstream ummah is not the ultimate hujjah. We said you should do this because your own Imams, the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhimu salam, in their most authentic narrations, which are verified and authenticated by the top scholars of Ilm al-Rijal, all the way from Ayatollah Sayyid Abul Qasim al-Khoyi to his student Ayatollah al-Sheikh Muhammad Asif Muhsini, and they are even authentic and reliable as per the methodology of Sayyidi Sistani. So when these narrations are authentic, and they are regarded as being more authentic than any other narrations which say the opposite, even by traditional scholars, then why not act on them? Why not follow them? So we were saying that we should change and realign our practice with that of the Ahlul Bayt, not with that of the mainstream Ummah. Rather, our argument was that once you realign your practice with that of the Ahlul Bayt, the added bonus that you will get from this is that there will be greater unity and uniformity in the Ummah, because this will bring your iftar and maghrib time and make it identical with that of the rest of the mainstream Ummah. So clearly, there was a lot of straw manning that was going on in the arguments of the Shaykh, but I don't want to dwell on those in this segment. In this segment, I want to focus on something that really struck me and that I find really concerning and worrying and disturbing. The kind of sectarian mindset that we are seeing these days on the Mimbar. This should be a wake-up call. And this should be a cause for deep soul-searching and introspection within our community members. Because these words that you're going to hear from the Stanmore Mimbar were really shocking. If we can request for them to be played, then inshallah I can give you my comments and my take on what exactly is so objectionable and problematic about this kind of thinking.
This masala in itself, we as Shias, we need to understand that today this has become one of the sha'ir of Shias, one of the slogans of Shias, one of the things that we are known for. Like what? Like Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah. That this is originally not a part of the adhan, but when it was put in the part of the adhan with the niyyah of qurba mutlaqa, of qurbatan ilallah ta'ala, today this is known to be a Shia adhan. It distinguishes us. And amongst the things as well that distinguish us is also for us to wait with respect to the iftar. So we as mu'mineen, we should not have weak will when it comes to this. We have fasted for so many hours. You just wait for a few minutes and then you are sure that you have actually broken your fast when you're supposed to break it.
So basically the logic that is being used here is that regardless And notwithstanding the fact that the more authentic narrations from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are saying that we should open the fast as soon as the disk of the sun disappears from the horizon, and that this is the correct time, this is the correct sunnah, we should ignore all of that, and we should continue to hold on to the popular ruling that tells us to wait unnecessarily and in contravention and opposition to what the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are actually teaching us in their authentic narrations. We should ignore and throw away the authentic narrations of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, because the current sectarian practice is something that Shias have become known for. It has become a sectarian marker. It's become something that distinguishes the Shia. So do you see what's so worrying and what's so disturbing about this mindset? Is that you are no longer concerned about haq and batil. You're no longer concerned about being a true Shia. Shia means followership of the Imam. Shia does not mean that you necessarily have to distinguish yourself from the Ummah on every single thing, including those things in which your Imam agreed with the rest of the Ummah. That was not what true classical Shi'ism was about, or what early Shi'ism was about. But unfortunately, with the passage of time, you can see the kind of sectarian mindset that has developed, is that these sectarian shuyukh are selling us this idea from the mimbar that any practice that becomes a sectarian marker, it becomes among the sha'air, among the emblems and the distinguishing marks of the Shia, we should not bother to investigate whether that practice is really from the Ahlul Bayt or not from the Ahlul Bayt, whether it is authentic or inauthentic. None of that should be our concern. Our concern should be, so long as it's distinguishing us from the rest of the Ummah, we should hold on to it. And if someone brings research and evidence from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt proving how this popular practice is not in line with the teaching of Ahlul Bayt, we should somehow try to discredit them. We should try to silence their voice. We should try to accuse them of being arrogant and ignorant. And instead, we should continue following the popular ruling. Why? Because this is our shi'ar. This is our sectarian identity. This is what we are known for. And that's why he gave another example, which is of the third shahada in adhan. He says this, even though we know it is not part of the adhan. And he is right. The Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wasalam, the adhan and iqamah that they taught you, it's there in the 4 books of hadith, right? The 4 canonical books of Shia hadith have the adhan as taught by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. And yet, if you look at the text of the adhan and iqamah that's given in our books of hadith, there is no mention of the third shahada or wilayah of Imam Ali alayhi salam in it. Yet, the sectarian mindset is saying that even if the Imams didn't teach us this, even if the Imams and the classical scholars of their school were dead set and very firmly opposed to any bid'ah and any innovation and any addition, we should continue to hold on to this, because now this is serving as a distinguishing mark that will separate us from the Ummah. This is the kind of mindset. Without bothering that this popular ritual or popular practice that's distinguishing you from the Ummah, where is it coming from? I mean, we had previously shared this, but I don't mind pointing this out again. He mentioned third shahada. Third shahada is a very good example of something that became a distinguishing marker of Shia sectarian identity. But really, where did you get this distinguishing marker from? Did you get it from the Imams, or did you get it from the enemies of the Imams? This is Man La Yahduruhu al-Faqih by Sheikh al-Jalil al-Aqdam, the grand classical Sheikh Abu Ja'far Muhammad ibn Ali ibn al-Hussein bin Babawayh al-Qummi, al-Sheikh al-Saduq, right? And this is the edition that's published by Mu'assasatu al-Nashr al-Islami al-Tabi'a li Jama'at al-Mudarrisina bi Qum al-Musharrafa. This is the Qum edition, edited by Al-Allama al-Sheikh Ali Akbar al-Ghaffari. If you come to volume 1, page 290, you see that Sheikh Saduq gives you hadith from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, narration from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, laying out and delineating what the correct adhan is. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah. No Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah or Ashhadu anna Aliyan Hujjatullah. This is the adhan as taught by Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. And then look at what Shaykh al-Saduq says after this. قال مصنف هذا الكتاب رحمه الله. Shaykh al-Saduq says هذا هو الأذان الصحيح. What Imam Sadiq, Imam Abu Abdullah alayhi salam has taught us here, this formula of adhan, this is the correct adhan. هذا هو الأذان الصحيح. لا يزاد فيه ولا ينقص منه. This is the correct adhan. Nothing should be added to it. Nothing should be subtracted from it. But then وَالْمُفَوِّضَةُ لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ قَدْ وَضَعُوا أَخْضَارًا وَزَادُوا فِي الْأَذَانِ. The Mufawwidah, the deviant, ghali, extremist Shiite sect called the Mufawwidah, may Allah send His la'na on them. قَدْ وَضَعُوا أَخْضَارًا. They have fabricated narrations. وَزَادُوا فِي الْأَذَانِ. And on that basis, they have added to the adhan. What have they added to the adhan? Well, in one version, they have added Muhammadun wa al Muhammad khairul bariyah, marratain, 2 times. In other narrations of the Mufawwidah, they have added after Ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah, Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliyullah, marratain. You have to say this twice. The Mufawwidah who added this to the adhan, they said you have to say it twice. Okay? And others who report that instead of this, you should say Ashhadu anna Aliyan Amirul Mu'minina Haqqa. Again, marratain, 2 times. And Shaykh al-Saduq says, وَلَا شَكَّ فِي أَنَّ عَلِيًّا وَلِيُّ اللَّهِ. He says, look, no one is doubting that Ali is a friend of Allah. He is a wali of Allah, a pious slave of Allah. وَأَنَّهُ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ حَقًّا. Yes, he was the commander of the believers in truth. وَأَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا وَآلَهُ صَلَوَاتُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِمْ خَيْرُ الْبَرِيَّةِ. And then there is no disputing that Muhammad and his progeny are the best of creation. وَلَكِنْ لَيْسَ ذَلِكَ فِي أَصْلِ الْأَذَانِ. But that is not part of the adhan. And of course, today's scholars also accept that. But then look at what he says after this. He says, وَإِنَّمَا ذَكَرْتُ ذَلِكَ لِيُعْرَفَ بِهَذِهِ الزِّيَادَةِ الْمُتَّهَمُونَ بِالتَّفْوِيضِ الْمُدَلِّسُونَ أَنفُسَهُم فِي جُمْلَتِنَا. He says, I'm mentioning this specifically, this whole clarification I'm giving you, and I'm informing you of how the Mufawwidah, may Allah curse them, are the ones who have added this. The reason why I'm informing you of this is because إِنَّمَا ذَكَرْتُ ذَلِكَ, I have mentioned this لِيُعْرَفَ بِهَذِهِ الزِّيَادَةِ, so that it should become easy for the Shia, the mainstream Shia, to identify using this edition, because I've already marked this edition for you and I've told you that this is the work of this is the edition of the Mufawwidah, may Allah curse them. So because I've highlighted this fact for you, now it should become easy for you, because remember, Shaykh al-Saduq is writing this book for the lay person, for the person who does not have access to the faqih. Man la yahduruhu al-faqih means the one who does not have access to the faqih. So the lay person, he's telling the lay person, Shaykh al-Saduq, that I'm mentioning this so that you should be able to identify those who are guilty and who stand accused of this deviant doctrine, this deviant belief in tafweed. Okay, tafweed was basically the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the universe and then handed over, He delegated authority over the universe to the Imams of Ahlulbayt so that they can perform all of the functions of governing this universe with Allah's permission and through Allah's authorization and delegation. These were regarded as ghulat and as extremists in the classical period. And one of their signs, one of their distinguishing sectarian markers were that these accursed Mufawwidah, may Allah send la'na on them, used to add Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliyullah to the adhan. But the mainstream Shia and the Shia of Qum, they were against this. And Shaykh al-Saduq says, Al-Mudallisuna anfusahum fi jumlatina. These Mufawwidah, they are trying to infiltrate our communities. Okay, they are hidden inside our communities, and I want to smoke them out. I want to warn the public so that the public should be careful of these dangerous individuals who are trying to spread their falsehood and their ghulu within our communities. And the way to recognize them is listen to their adhan. If their adhan has Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah in it, you know that these are the Mufawwidah, la'anahumullah. Because in Shaykh al-Saduq's time, no mainstream Orthodox Shiite person or scholar was saying Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah in adhan. It was the distinguishing marker of the ghulat and the Mufawwidah. May Allah send la'na upon them. But sadly, today what has happened? Today, this Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah, as the scholar himself is testifying, has become a sectarian marker and a distinguishing feature of the Shia, so much so that he's saying that even if it's not part of the adhan, even if you can prove that the Imams did not say it, we should say it, because now this has become our identity. This has become what distinguishes us from the Ummah. And our question, our humble question to these people is that ma'qulun hada, does this make sense to you? That the ghulat, the enemies of the Imams, remember the Mufawwida are people for whom we have a whole chapter full of narrations from Imam al-Rida alayhi salam. Shaykh al-Saduq has lined them up in his other book, Uyunu Akhbar al-Rida. A whole chapter in which Imam al-Rida alayhi salam repudiates the claims of the Mufawwida. He invokes the la'na of Allah upon the Mufawwida. He accuses them of being mushrikeen. He encourages the Shi'as not to have any sort of relationship or connection with them. These Mufawwida, their emblem and their distinguishing factor is that they say Ashhadu anna Aliyan Waliullah in adhan. But today we have mainstream Shia scholars from the Mimbar, people associated with Islamic education and the World Federation. They're sitting on the Mimbar in our community center in Stanmore. And what are they saying? They are saying that no, this has become among the masail that distinguishes Shi'ism, and therefore
that this is originally not a part of the adhan, but when it was put in the part of the adhan with the niyyah of qurba mutlaqa, of qurbatan ila Allah ta'ala, today this is known to be a Shia adhan. It distinguishes us. And amongst the things as well that distinguish us is also for us to wait with respect to the iftar.
So his whole idea is that because this distinguishes us, even if it is the fabrication of the ghulat and the mufawwida and people who are cursed by the Imams and repudiated and refuted by the classical Shia scholars like Shaykh al-Saduq, we should ignore all of that and we should just stick to and uphold and defend whatever has become popular today. So basically, with this kind of logic, even a Christian would never be able to arrive at the truth. Because if you were to go and debate with a Christian and prove to him from his own sources how the belief in Trinity, belief in vicarious atonement, belief in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and the fact that his blood on the cross, or the claim that the blood or his blood on the cross wipes away the sins of all of humanity, especially those who believe in him, all these claims, even if you were to prove to a Christian that these are not part of the original teaching and message and mission of Prophet Isa alayhi salam, if the Christian were to adopt this mentality, he would say, well, what do I care? You know, what Isa alayhi salam preached, what he believed, he didn't believe. For me, the important thing is that today all Christians believe in Trinity. They all believe in vicarious atonement. They all believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins. And so what today's Christians believe in, what's popular in Christian circles today is hujjah for me. That is what I will uphold. If a Christian had this kind of logic, would he ever arrive at the haqq? Would he ever be able to swim out of his batil and come towards the haqq? Obviously not. So now you tell me, if as Shia, you also develop this mentality that, look, I'm just going to go by what's popular today, what the mainstream Shi'ism of today is saying, I'm just going to blindly follow that. I'm not going to care about what the Imam said. I'm not even going to care that what I am doing is actually the invention of the ghulat and the mufawwida. I don't care. So what if it's the invention of the ghulat and mufawwida, whom our Imams cursed and whom our Imams denounced and repudiated and disassociated from? I am still going to uphold their practice and ignore the authentic practice of the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhi salam. So Maulana, if you have this mentality, and if this is the kind of sectarian mindset you have, then fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows you in the Quran how Isa alayhi salam will disassociate himself from all those who made false claims about him, whether it be the Trinity, whether it be him being the son of God or his mother being God or divine. He will repudiate, he will denounce all such people on the Day of Judgment. Then don't cry and don't complain when on the Day of Judgment the same thing happens with you. That the Imams of Ahlulbayt, they sue you in Allah's court for insulting them and for bringing humiliation to them by claiming to be their followers while actually following the sunnah, or rather the bid'ah of the ghulat. This is the problem today, is that you claim to be followers of the Ahlulbayt, but your distinguishing marks are inventions of the Ghulat. And this is what Ayatollah Sheikh Abdullah al-Mamqani had warned us about. And we've been repeatedly sharing his warning. The teacher of Ayatollah Sayyid Shihabuddin al-Mar'ashi al-Najafi, he warned us that he said, أكثر ما يعد اليوم من ضروريات المذهب في أوصاف الأئمة عليهم السلام. Majority of what is considered to be the ضروريات of the madhab, the core foundational beliefs of the Shia sect, the mainstream Shia, Orthodox Shia sect today. Majority of what you people consider to be core and essential Shia beliefs about the Imams and their attributes and their nature. He says majority of these beliefs in the time of the Imams, or closer to the time of the Imams, these were considered to be ghulu, these were considered to be extremism and deviation. But unfortunately, what was considered to be ghulu and deviation and shirk and kufr during the time of the Imams, today you are trying to argue that no, this has now become our sectarian identity. This is what's setting us apart from the ummah. This is distinguishing us from the mainstream Muslims. So we should hold on to this with both our hands and not let go of it. What kind of mentality is this? And where are you headed? With this kind of mindset, you tell me, what rabbit hole are you going to end up in? Wallahi, this is really, really disturbing. For those of you who want Sheikh al-Saduq's statement, you want to access it in English, there's actually a brilliant paper that's been authored by Professor Liaqat Taqeen. He's a Khoja professor of Islamic studies. And he published this research paper entitled From Bid'ah to Sunnah, the Wilayah of Ali in Adhan, by Professor Liaqat A. Taqeen. It was published in the Journal of the American Oriental Society, volume 120, number 2, in the year 2000, pages 166 to 177. And this paper was appreciated by the academic world so much that it was republished as part of this of the Critical Concepts in Islamic Studies series that was produced by Rutledge, and that was edited by Paul Luft and Colin Turner. This is in 4 volumes. We recommend it, highly recommend it for all those students, scholars, and researchers who are interested in Shi'i studies. You will find this research paper has been reproduced in volume 3, page. It's the 52nd research paper that has been included in this encyclopedia, from page 331 to page 350. You can access the article. I have a scan of it, so I don't mind very quickly reading for you the relevant part. So this is From Bid'ah to Sunnah, the Wilayah of Ali in Shi'i Adhan. And he talks about how the earliest juridical work extant is Al-Kulayni's Furu' al-Kafi. Although in this work, Al-Kulayni examines various segments of the Adhan, he does not discuss or even mention the Wilayah of Ali as a part of it at all. The first scholar to take up the Wilayah in the Adhan was As-Saduq. Okay, died 381, 991. After reviewing the different parts of the Adhan in his Man La Yahduruhu al-Faqih, he states, and these are Sheikh Saduq's words, this is the English translation of what I presented in Arabic. He said this is the correct Adhan. He's pointing to the Adhan of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Nothing is to be added or subtracted from it. The Mufawwida, may God curse them, have fabricated narrations or traditions and have added to the Adhan, Muhammad and the family of Muhammad are the best of mankind, reciting it twice. In some of their traditions, after uttering, I bear witness that Muhammad is the Prophet of Allah, they add, I bear witness that Ali is the Wali, friend of God, twice. Among them, there are others who narrate instead of this, I bear witness that Ali is the true commander of the faithful, twice. There is no doubt that Ali is the friend of God and that he is the true commander of the faithful, and that Muhammad and his family, peace be upon them, are the best of God's creation, or best of God's creatures. However, this is not part of the original adhan. I have mentioned this so that those who have been accused of concocting the doctrine of tafweed and have insinuated themselves in our ranks should become known. So as you can see, he then comments, Professor Taqim, he says it's clear that As-Saduq regards those who recite the wilayah as belonging to the Mufawwidah, which is for him an extremist group, as he unequivocally curses and condemns them for their actions. For As-Saduq, the recitation of the wilayah in the adhan is one of the distinguishing marks of the Mufawwidah. So we need to ask this Sheikh in Stanmore, do you consider yourself Mufawwidah? Because he's saying this has now become among the sha'air of the Shia. Why are you creating a false equivalence between the Mufawwidah and the Shia? Or are you trying to say that the mainstream 12 Shia of today are basically the Mufawwidah of yesterday, and that they're one and the same? Because for As-Saduq, the recitation of the wilayah in the adhan is one of the distinguishing marks of the Mufawwidah. Thus, the Mufawwidah are to be differentiated from the mainstream 12 Shi'is by this practice. In any case, I think to conclude, I do not find any statement of any scholar to be more appropriate and more worthy of being shared with our respected audience than the words of Al-Allama or Ayatollah Al-Muhaqqiq Al-Sheikh Muhammad Taqi Tustari in his Qamus Al-Rijal. This is his 12-volume encyclopedia on Ilm Al-Rijal. In the 12th volume, he has a risala that he has written on the issue of Sahun Nabi. This is his Qamus Al-Rijal. تأليف العلامة المحقق آية الله العظمى الشيخ محمد تقي التستري الجزء الثاني عشر. This is the 12th volume. مؤسسة النشر الإسلامي التابعة لجماعة المدرسين بقم المشرفة. This is published by the Teachers Association in the Hawza Ilmiya of Qum. If you come to page 677, towards the conclusion of this risala, he's talking about the conclusion. He says, ثم إنه وإن صار في عصرنا عدم جواز المسألتين من ضروريات المذهب. He says that we do recognize and we have to acknowledge that in our time, he's writing this in the 20th century, in our time, the impermissibility or the impossibility of these two things. By two things, he's referring to the possibility of the Prophet forgetting Sahwun Nabi and in prayer, and also the Holy Prophet sleeping at the time of prayer, which is mentioned in the narrations of the Ahlulbayt. He says these two things are regarded as impossible, and regarding them impossible has become among the daruriyat of the madhab. It has become among the foundational, fundamental pillars and non-negotiable doctrines of the Shia madhab. كما صار جزئية الشهادة بالولاية في الأذان والإقامة أيضا كذلك. He says just as how the third shahada and testifying to the wilayah of Ali in adhan and iqamah has also become among the daruriyat of the madhab. And similarly, مشروعية الصلاة والصوم الاستجاريين, the permissibility of fasting, of praying and fasting on the basis of, on rental basis, yani for payment. Someone has qada fasts and you fast or pray on behalf of them for a fee. He says all of these things are things that are not supported by the teachings of our imams. In fact, they are opposed by the teachings of our imams. What are the three things he's mentioning? First of all, the two mas'alas of Sahun Nabi and Nawmun Nabi. The Prophet sleeping in at the time of prayer on some occasions, and also the Holy Prophet forgetting in prayer. He says there are mutawatir narrations from the Ahlulbayt confirming that because the Holy Prophet was a human being, he did sometimes forget in prayer, and he also would be missed a few prayers in his life because of being asleep. He says there are mutawatir narrations from the Ahlul Bayt which are highly authentic, which prove this. But he says today people are not willing to accept this because it has become a distinguishing factor of the sect that you have to reject these things. Because infallibility of the Prophet has become part of the daruriyat of the madhab. So that's number one. Number two, juz'iyatu shahadati bil wilayati fil adhan wal iqama. The shahada and the testimony of wilaya, yani reciting the third shahada in adhan and iqama being part of the adhan, this has also become daruriyat of the madhab. Yani technically they don't consider it part of the adhan, but whenever the adhan and iqama, he's talking about practically, whenever practically the adhan and iqama is given, the third shahada is always part of it. وَمَشْرُوعِيَّةُ الصَّلَاةِ وَالصَّوْمِ الْإِسْتِجَارِيَّيْنِ. And the third mas'ala, which doesn't have basis in the authentic teachings of the Imams, but which nonetheless has become unanimously accepted within the Shia sect, is the permissibility of offering salah and performing fasts on a rental or fee base, on the basis of receiving payment and then doing it for someone else. He says, وَكُلُّ مَنْ سَمِعَ سَارَعَ إِلَى الطَّعْنِ وَالْغَمْزِ. And he says, if you try to present the original teaching of Ahlul Bayt with regard to any of these three masail, everyone who listens to you and will hasten to discredit you and to attack you. He says, this is the sad thing, is that today if you try to defend the actual teaching of Ahlul Bayt against what is popular in the sect, people will rush to discredit you and to attack you. But then look at what I've highlighted in green here. This is the beautiful approach that a true scholar of the school of Ahlul Bayt is supposed to take. He says, إِلَّا أَنَّ الْحَقَّ أَحَقُّ أَن يُتَّبَعَ. He says, except that we should not be bothered by any of this. We should not be bothered by what's popular in the sect. We should not be bothered by how people will attack us and try to discredit us and character assassinate us if we try to challenge what's popular in the sect and if we try to present the actual teaching of Ahlul Bayt. Why should we not worry about any of that? He says, because there's something even greater and bigger than us in all of this. And that is إِلَّا أَنَّ الْحَقِّ. That is the truth. We should not allow the truth to become a casualty to popular tastes and popular deviations. So he says, إِلَّا أَنَّ الْحَقَّ أَحَقُّ أَن يُتَّبَعَ. He says, the truth is more worthy of being followed. Regardless of how unpopular it has become in the sect, the truth is what must be followed. And that is what we should always be concerned about. And that is always what we should follow, because that is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt would expect us to do. He continues by saying, فَإِنَّ الْأَصْلَ فِي هَذِهِ الضَّرُورَةِ الْحَادِثَةِ شُبْهَةٌ مِنَ الْمُفِيدِ كَمَا تَبَيَّنَ لَكَ مِمَّا شَرَحْتَ. He says, especially since as far as the belief in infallibility, total and absolute infallibility is concerned, this is a later development that resulted from a mistaken interpretation of Shaykh al-Mufid, as I've explained in this Risala. And so in this matter, we should abandon the view of Shaykh al-Mufid and go by the authentic narrations of Ahlul Bayt. And so this is basically what we say on every mas'ala, where the sect has deviated under the influence of ghulu and ghulat. It has deviated from the authentic teachings of Ahlul Bayt. This is what we say for every mas'ala, that wherever we discover evidence that the authentic narrations of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are saying one thing, and the sect and what's popular in the sect is going in a different direction, we should throw away what's popular in the sect and follow what the authentic and original teaching of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimu salatu wassalam was. And so for this Shaykh to argue that no, even in the matter of fasting, because delaying the iftar and delaying Maghrib has now become among the sha'air of the Shia, it's become our distinguishing mark. So therefore we should hold on to it. Even if it's something that was part of the vision of the Ghulat, even if it's something that's not endorsed and supported by the most authentic narrations of the Imams, we don't care about that. Because aslan, these people are saying they don't care about Imams. Yani they may not say it with their mouths, but with their practice, Lisanul Hal is saying, we are not true Shia of Imams. We don't care about what the Imams did. We are more concerned about maintaining our separate identity. We want to be distinct and different from the Ummah. We want to be divided and disunited from the mainstream Ummah. And we will uphold our disunity and our division with the mainstream Ummah, even if that means we have to abandon our authentic teachings of our Imams and follow the transmissions of the Ghulat, or mistaken transmissions from the Imams of Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam, which were falsely attributed to them. This kind of sectarian mindset is not going to take you towards the haqq. It's not going to guarantee you salvation on the Day of Judgment. In fact, it's going to create for you huge problems on the Day of Judgment, huge embarrassment, huge humiliation. When the Imams of Ahlul Bayt confront you on the Day of Judgment and say that, from where did you get this idea that being separated from the Ummah is more important than following the haqq, such that even after it becomes established that the Ahlul Bayt and their teaching, their haqq-based teaching was in favor of the mainstream Ummah, just because the mainstream Ummah was following them, you had to abandon following them. So at this rate, my friends, you're going to completely wash your hands from the religion of Islam, because there's so many aspects of Islam which the entire mainstream Ummah and the Imams of Ahlul Bayt are on the same page on. So one by one, you're going to start giving up on all of those things out of your hatred for the mainstream Ummah and your desire to be separate and distinct from the mainstream Ummah. Wal-'iyadhu billah. Wa akhiru da'wana an alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.